Now, the simplest way to archive is simply to use your Finder as a database. And the simplest way to do that is just to let your files accumulate in your Downloads folder. That can get a little bit messy. Another approach is to automatically or manually file your files in accordance with a simple process. So I'm going to show you a very simple one here, which is basically to use an application called Leap, which will automatically file and, if you want, tag your files like this. So let's just do this here. So this could be, give it a silly tag, blogging. All right. And I told Leap that I wanted it to be filed. So when I hit enter, it will be tagged and filed. So where does this file go? Well, it goes in the Leap file directory, which is just a directory on your hard disk or your disk that you can control. You can set in the Leap preferences. So we'll access here. It's called File Documents in my case. So here's the File Documents. I can drill down to 2016, which is the year here, today's date, and here's the file that I have filed. Now, to retrieve these files, of course, you would rely on Spotlight, but you could also use indexing tools, one of which is DevonThink, which we do not cover in any detail at this point in this book, but you would basically ensure that DevonThink has indexed these documents. DevonThink has a very powerful search engine which you can leverage, which supports tags and all kinds of other criteria, including fuzzier criteria than the Spotlight search engine affords. Another tool you can use to automatically file your files apart from Leap and Yep is Hazel, which is covered in another book co-authored by Brett Terpstra, which is 60 Mac Tips. Another way to store your files directly on the hard disk, so without putting it into an opaque database like Evernote, which we'll discuss below, is to use Eagle Filer. I'm going to explain below why it's very helpful to keep your files on your drive, which might be synced with, say, iCloud or Dropbox, rather than in an opaque database like Evernote. The Eagle Filer approach is quite handy because it has a whole bunch of ways of creating indexes that are robust, and you don't have to worry about your files being in a proprietary format. You don't have to worry about monthly fees. You don't want to have to worry about your files being stuck. You can use all of your favorite Spotlight and Finder tools and whatnot to get to your files, and that's something we feel is very, very important. Now, another way to store your files, which is probably what most people do, although we'll give it a different twist here, is to archive them by topic, either within a project folder or just kind of at the top level across different projects by topic. Now, this here is a resources folder. You'll remember when I showed you template directories that there was a resource directory for files that are pertinent to the project that you're working on. Now, I'm writing a fairly substantial theoretical paper on a method for facilitating sleep that I invented called the cognitive shuffle. There's an app for that. So here I have a fairly extensive directory with several subdirectories in which, well, you would think that you'd find the PDF files, and that would be a way to do it if you don't use what we'll discuss next, which is a bibliography manager. But if you do use a bibliography manager, or you encounter this situation, which most of us will, which is that a given paper will be useful across several different projects, then you can actually use aliases. So what you would do in that case is create an alias, which is basically a link to the original PDF file where it lives, which in this case is here. And you'll see if I expose this that this is basically in my papers repository, which is a bibliography manager that we'll talk about in the next screencast.